Welcome, guys, to Rifle versus Shotgun. Right, this is one of my favorite lessons to teach, just because I'm a little country and I kind of like the title, but it's incredibly valuable in order for you to just really understand what the true capability of Google Ads is, and what maybe some of display and YouTube and some of these other platforms that you can access through Google Ads are really viable for, right? So rifle versus shotgun really comes back to the hyper focus your marketing, right? So the rifle method is going to be much more about making sure that you're contacting that prospect exactly when and where they're looking for you, rather than the whole spray and pray method, right? So Google Ads value, it really comes in. Google Ad controls the two most effective and highly trafficked sites on the net, right? Google Ads allows targeting at an increasingly granular level. Google allows you to build audiences and retargeting as well. So utilize a lot of that nice data that you're building up and paid a lot of money for a lot of times. Google Ad also allows you to take advantage of the focused audience data and create affinity audiences. So all of that data you have that is so focused and kind of segmented in your own prospects, they can take outside beyond that, right? And you can look out with people that share similar traits or data points, locations, those type of things. Google Ads also allows you to control the message delivery at a very granular level, right? So it's not about spraying the same message out there all over the place. And that's where a lot of this rifle versus shotgun kind of comparison comes in, because you're able to hyper focus and work that message down. So you can contact each and everybody at, when you're talking about the awareness, you can speak one message. Whenever they become aware of your product and want to do a little more research, you can focus it on a different message that has a little different value and a different goal. And the ultimate bottom funnel message can be very, very much sales driven, with call to actions that are forcing or pushing them more towards a purchase or a conversion on your site, right? So the shotgun method, it exactly just like this, description kind of shows. It's a spray and pray where you blow just everything out, right? The pros of it are create a massive amount of awareness by touching as many people as fast as possible, right? The really bad part about it is, again, it's harder to sustain and potentially miss prospects when they're ready to purchase due to already depleted ad spend. Now, there's another component to it as well. If you're spraying out and you hit 1 million different people, but you're only touching those 1 million people once or twice, then it's very hard to formulate even some sort of pattern or demographic that you're trying to target, right? So it's hard to optimize off of such a wide breadth of data, as opposed to kind of hyper focusing it to understand who exactly is interacting with your ads. Where the rifle method, again, it increases your conversion rate. It forms top of mind awareness, further reinforcing with more consistent exposure. And it's hyper focus your message as well. The main thing about this is, again, it's where you're there when they're looking for you, not so much whenever they're not, right? How good is a billboard when you're driving down the highway at 90 miles an hour for, a nature center if all you're worried about is getting to work? Right? It's not going to have any sort of impact on your particular day when your point of focus and your goal and your mindset at that particular time is completely something different, right? It's only going to, hopefully, in best case scenario, honestly, in one of those is you're going to be like, they're going to be like, oh yeah, what was that billboard that I was searching for? And they're going to be looking up just, nature centers or places to hike, right? You're going to form some sort of maybe recognize about the actions, but any sort of brand reinforcement or top of mind awareness is really depleted when you're not able to increase that main consistency of exposure. Now, again, the cons are more time consuming on setup. That's really about the only thing. The main thing that you need to really take into this entire course is you've put in a lot of time, right? You've gone through a lot of lessons at this point, and we've talked about how making sure that producing hyper-focused relevant ads to your clients are going to reduce your cost and put more money back in your pocket. So is time consuming, is it really a con, right? So the con is kind of a null point whenever you think about the fact that you're going to be increasing conversion rates, you're going to save money, you're going to hyper-focus your message, form more brand, loyalty and relevance. Now, the target versus observation, right? This is kind of how we adjust the shotgun versus, rifle in the settings methods, right? The targeting method, it must take all selected targets and appear on those that all match. Now, if you see down below, we have a Venn diagram, right? The observation is a little different. The views each selected target, both independent and together. So in the observation method, it would look at each one of these as different opportunities for you to basically target in any particular search or any particular auction where the potential for you to show up in either a website, a search aspect, or even through YouTube, right? But they're going to look at these individually. So you're going to show up in front of people interested in football, regardless of whether or not they're interested in the Philadelphia Eagles or in beer. And, same thing with people interested in Philadelphia Eagles, but they may not be interested in beer. Right? More than likely, if they're interested in the Eagles, they're going to line up in these two, but they may not be interested in beer, right? That's what observation targeting is. It's going to look at them individually and target them individually. It does have the potential to target them all together, but the likelihood is a lot less unless there's just a high volume of traffic. But one thing that happens when we start reducing this down, this little target audience there in the middle, which you would be contacting with the targeting method, where it's combining all three methods and taking where they intersect as the precise point where you're going to target and display your ads, can run at a lower volume rate. So, that's one of those things where you may put in $50 as a daily budget, but because your targeting is so tight, you may only be able to spend 20. Google's not going to go out there and spend your money frivolously if you have it on targeting. If you have it on observation, not going to accuse them of frivolously spending your money, but it just gives them more opportunity that may not be as highly relevant or further down the conversion path that you can convert it and turn it into a positive interaction and positive to your ROI. It's also one of those things as well, like we talked about in the last slide. If you have all these pop shots like all over the place where you're contacting some people that are interested in American football, some people that are filtered in Eagles, and some people that are interested in beer, it's twofold. You are getting a whole bunch of data that is hard to optimize, but then also your messaging is a lot less effective because it's not highly relevant to all of their interests, right? If I want to target about, hey, there's a Budweiser special at the Eagles football stadium during the playoffs, right? That's going to be right there in the middle. That's what that person is, right? If I just want to target the person where I'm trying to sell beer, but they're only interested in Eagles football, well, hell, unless I have some other kind of segment or I guess qualification in there, such as like age or, demographic, something to that effect, I could be falling in front of a 13-year-old kid. No way a beer advertisement is going to be valuable to a 13-year-old kid, not for, 10 years. So those are the things that you need to think about whenever you're doing these target versus observations. And a lot of times I'm always going to roll with target just so that I'm getting the most hyper-focused, relevant traffic to my site and my ads delivered to that traffic, rather than giving Google so much capability to kind of flex its own muscles, right? We talked about in the display campaign where you have the ability for it to increase your reach or lower the reach, right? That's what that filter is for, right? If you put it all the way up, then the observation targeting is definitely going to target these all out, right? If you have it all the way down, the observation targeting is going to be a little less limited, but it's still going to have the potential to target each one of those targeting segments in a separate auction, or separately, I should say. And so I'm always going to, especially when we're going out, we're just starting, you really just want to make sure you're always starting out with the targeting method. Now, the customer journey, again, is very much how we're going to assess and put our messaging. And that's why it's so important to use the rifle method and, by de facto product, the setting of targeting, because you are really going to make sure that your message is going to be relevant at each stage of the transaction, right? And that's what these are looking at, right? Your in-store transactions are a little bit different, right? They're going to go awareness, consideration, right? You're going to have some other interactions where they maybe pop by a store, you give them a call, then they purchase, then they, maybe go back into service for it. And hopefully you can hit them up after the fact with, a promotion, a blog, email, or newsletter to increase that loyalty and the lifetime value and pull them back in. The online journey is a much different point. They're going to get hit in so many different areas, right? There may be in-store visits that are part of that, but there's going to be multiple display and advertising and just platform variations throughout their experience, whether or not you're talking about, showing them ads on a smart TV, a tablet, a cell phone, a desktop, or showing them ads on search networks, on display networks, on video networks. That ad, like the journey looks a lot different, as you can see from the representation on the screen. It's a very much more omni-channel experience that you need to make sure that your content is going to be very, very relevant at each one of those points. And that's why the rifle method is so much more advantageous and so much more recommended whenever we're talking about digital advertising, because of we can hyper focus and make the understanding and the message resonate much better by using content that performs much better on the particular device that they're looking at. Now, marketing dollars, they used to be kind of flipped upside down, right? They used to be all spent on, basically it would be a flow of prospecting, then you kind of nurture the relationship and you close them down. Where it's almost been flipped right now, right? That most small businesses don't have unlimited marketing dollars. Most companies need immediate return on the marketing dollars in order to scale. So you concentrate on the low-hanging fruit should be a focus until it is picked up at an 80-20 rule. Like this should be applied across everything, right? Focus on sales and direct response of header branding. As you scale, profitability will allow for expansion into testing additional audiences. Focus on the golden goose until the eggs turn to lead, right? And the whole point of that is the fact that that golden goose is always going to be your bottom funnel marketing, right? It's going to be the stuff that's going to fall in here, the prospects and the qualified prospects. That's going to be your low-hanging fruit. So until you start to see basically losses or decreases with either engagement, increases in CPC, or decreases in overall volume, most of your marketing dollars should be, 80% of them should be attributed to the lower part of your funnel, with that 20% more towards the qualified suspect, suspect and population, where this is more the marketing stuff. This is more creating the awareness, the brand formality or familiarity, and then also working them down to increase the loyalty and the research phase, so you build that trust as you're working down. And then the other 80% of that marketing dollars, until they kind of start equaling out, right, should be completely focused on your sales prospect, should be closing the sale and making sure that you're putting money back into the coffers so that you can reinvest in not only making more sales, but expanding your middle and top funnel market so you can breach out and expand that marketing audience and people that maybe aren't as familiar or aren't immediately aware of your particular product. Now, trust builds brands, right? That's really what it is. And that's why your ads, as you need to make sure throughout this entire process that your message is very, very relevant to the key stage that they're in, right? First of all, what you're going to do is it's going to be that opening that awareness effect. And that comes from the sincerity, kind of the openness of your product. Then you're going to go more into the research phase, right? The reliability and the commitment stage, right? It's also going to flow a little bit into the integrity stage, because this is this whole point through the research phase where they're checking, hey, are they a legitimate company? How long have they been in business? Is their product got good reviews? Is it made of high quality material? Do they have a lot of returns? Even the returns where they do have, do they handle them with integrity? Are they like, hey, we stand by our product and we're going to make sure that we're going to ship out and resolve this customer service situation, right? That flows in the competency of the product and the value of that as well, and then the consistency. So you combine all of those in order to create your brand trust. And each one of those methods, like whether or not you're talking about sincerity, reliability, commitment, integrity, competency, or consistency, are all addressed with different messages and at different stages within your marketing cycle. And some of these, like the consistency, even some of the integrity, right, and the competency is more of, it can even be after purchase sometimes, right, depending on how fast your sales cycle is. But some of these may be built better higher up. The ultimate goal is throughout your sales cycle is to build that awareness, form that top of mind awareness of your name and your brand within them, build the integrity and the loyalty through the research phase and the understanding as they look out to social, preference or social proof and just, their neighbors and their friends proof of the ability of your product to solve their particular pain points. So keep this entire kind of, flow of trust building and integrity building throughout your entire interactions, because at each one of the stages, depending on whether or not they've already purchased your product, they're looking, to buy your product, they're looking for help after purchase, or they're looking, to completely replace your product through attrition, or they've just moved on to, a higher need, like within my particular case, where maybe they need to learn how to do, analytics more in depth, or they need to learn how to do social, or they want to do sales funnels, right? I need to keep up that consistency and that competency throughout my funnel after my sale in order for them to continue to promote that lifetime value and that loyalty in order to Collateral Growth's brand, right? Like the sincerity, like I'm going to convey that in every single one of my videos. And the trust, the reliability is just in the overall metrics that we've reflected and we've done. The commitment is me putting out the community and the actual resources where they can search out and have help for. And the integrity is me continuing to follow you through, right? And the competency and consistency, they kind of honestly competency can even be moved up in here a little bit, within our particular flow for Collateral Growth, because you need to know what the hell I'm talking about before you're going to trust whether or not I'm going to teach you the proper skills, right? So some of these may be intertwined depending on what your funnel is and depending on how your product is exposed to the different market. But ultimately, like the trust and the interactions and the sincerity throughout those interactions is what's going to build your brand and build the trust and loyalty to bring them back to purchasing you and even recommending you outside of their interactions. The omnichannel, right, is using your online presence to support and encourage a holistic quality experience for your prospects. Don't oversaturate it, right? That's the main reason why omnichannel is so valuable. If all of a sudden I'm just blasting out my message and I'm spending hundreds of thousands of dollars and just irritating the shit out of people on Facebook, it's going to become a byproduct. That's why creating these omnichannel basically funnels and processes are incredibly important for creating brand loyalty, brand trust, and brand integrity, because the sincerity of your ads can be watered down if all of a sudden you're just throwing it at their face, right? How are they ever going to focus on the value props? How are they ever going to go through the research phase? How are they going to, ever distinguish you on different platforms if you're all just basically oversaturated in one area, right? You need to make sure you're doing e-commerce sites, you have online marketplaces through, Amazon and Facebook. If it's possible, you have a brick and mortar location where they can walk into and speak with you. You also want to do, review aspects and follow up with your customers to get them to do social proofing and review validation. And then obviously, again, the social networks throughout the entire process is an incredibly valuable proponent in just pushing your overall social proof out and your awareness and your understanding across your entire target market. That is one of the best use of their mouthpiece, is just if they rave and reviews. And a lot of the way that you're going to create all of that, buzz basically, is through the consistent, trustworthy interaction like we talked about on the last slide. So what we covered in this is really just more of a breakdown of how you're going to utilize, more of the targeted approach. And I wanted to just kind of bring this whole slide deck into the equation because it really, really focuses on the fact that you have the capability through using digital marketing and platforms, and especially Google Ads, in hyper-focusing your message and using targeting at a very, very calculated and strategic way in order to make sure that whenever that person is searching for your product, you deliver the proper message to answer the questions that they've come up with. When they're ready to purchase that product, you're directing them to the proper site and the proper interaction to make that purchase a very easy flow by clear and easy call to actions and direction buttons to make the entire process from, initial awareness through the research phase, through the validation phase, all the way to the conversion phase, very, very consistent and sincere, as well as making sure that you're following back up and making sure that you're, reinforcing that you're not a fly-by-night, that you do care about this customer's interaction. Please give us reviews. Tell us what we did right. Tell us how we can improve. Those kind of interactions are mind-bogglingly valuable to providing not only just public proof and value as far as word of mouth in the public, but also incredibly just building on your awareness of what you need to do to grow as a company, right? They're incredibly those are targeted markets as well, to think once you get further down the road that you can start leaning on them to get quizzes and surveys in order to help boost what products you need to come out with, how you can improve your process, what you liked about it, what you didn't like. Those are all things that are incredibly valuable to make sure that you can grow as a business and you continue to morph and adapt to your overall marketplace, so you continue to grow, continue to increase your conversions, continue to lower your costs, provide extremely relevant content and relevant products and services to your target market, while always putting additional money back in your pocket. So let's jump on into the next lesson, and we're going to dive much more into the strategy of utilizing the audiences and much more about these targeting at the higher level to allow some of this incredible smart learning features and that Google has really put in place to really help you throw your conversions through the roof and just increase and scale at a rate you didn't think of was even possible. So I'll see you in the next video.